And Peggy Hall back with you from the healthyamerican.org. And everybody's talking about these headlines that Health and Human Services is canceling millions and millions of dollars in the mRNA vaccine contracts. And some of you are emailing me and saying, Peggy, it's great news. You're always criticizing Bob for not getting rid of the poison, but look at what the government is doing. And my question is, did you actually dig beneath the headlines, or did you just get fooled by the headlines? Because look at the headlines. RFK Jr. cancels nearly 500 million in mRNA vaccine contracts. And then you have another one from NPR. RFK Jr. pulls 500 million in funding, and they're basically the same headlines. Health Secretary RFK Jr. shuts the door on U.S. investment in mRNA vaccine research. Well, let me know in a comment if you can read between the lies, and if you actually took just like a minute to read more than the headlines and to see exactly what's going on. Because what's happening is people are, well, I'll just say, ignorant or blind or I don't know what, but they're not actually reading what is there. Oh, I've got another example for you of people not reading what is there. You're going to want to stay till the end of the video, because wait until I share with you an email that came in right before I came on the air. I was flabbergasted by somebody who said they read my Substack and had a very interesting question for someone who says they read my Substack. So people are going to look at these headlines and say, that's it. No more government funding for vaccines. Well, what I think is interesting is I just did a video for you 2 days ago. So right now, this is Wednesday, August 6th, and I did this video on Monday. And I told people to stop calling it vaccine safety. And I actually shared with you the fact that Bob here is in favor. Let me get this going for you. I kind of want to make this a little bit larger. All right. So he's in favor of these poisons. And in this video, which was full of a lot of snark, so for those of you that don't have a sense of humor, I wouldn't watch my videos. Just go to a different channel. And anyway, I broke this down and I shared with you my analysis of this lawsuit as a friendly lawsuit, because it's going to force Bob to get more jabs in the arms of children and more dollars in the pockets of the pharmaceutical companies. And I had a whole section here about your tax dollars funding the creation of more poison. And I shared with you BARDA, which is the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority. I call it BARFA because you need your vomit bucky, as I say, to have on hand when you read this stuff. And I shared with you all of these very recent projects where your tax dollars are going to create more poison. Well, I can't say for sure that Bob or anyone in his administration is watching my videos, but I will say that 2 days later, they came out with this announcement. And let's take a look at it now, shall we? Because we're not just going to read the headline. But the headline does say HHS winds down, which doesn't really mean canceling, winds down the mRNA vaccine development under BARDA. Well, that's only one area of vaccine investment. And what I want to share with you, because people aren't going to read any further, is here. Kennedy says, let me be absolutely clear. Health and Human Services supports safe, effective vaccines for every American. Oh, who wants them? Yes, all y'all are telling me, Peggy, he's only for vaccine choice. Oh, yeah, that's what all of you were fighting for all these years. All you parents of the irreparably harmed children that couldn't send your children to public school, which is a good thing. That's what you were fighting for, was just choice. Or were you fighting to sound the alarm so that other parents wouldn't make the mistake that you did and harm their children because they listened to the government? So what Kennedy is saying is, I'll help you read between the lies here. We're moving beyond the limitations of mRNA, and we are investing in better solutions. You see, friends, so many people, because you all know someone, maybe even yourself, You went along with this propaganda and you became a human pincushion. Maybe you thought you had to do it. Maybe you wanted to do it. Maybe you felt coerced or intimidated, or at the time you thought it was a good idea, but you or someone you know has been harmed by the side effects of these products, which carry the name mRNA. So that word has a dark history to it now. So if you remove the mRNA, Bob and other Bobs believe, like Bob Malone and others, then the public will be more easily swayed to accept these different forms that are safer. That's what's going on, friends. And here we go. Nobody bothered to read the end. And I'll tell you how I know that, because I just got an email from someone asking me a question that was very clearly answered in the very email she was responding to. How do you like them apples? Before we go to that and I show you that, let's look at this, shall we? This move signals a broader shift in federal vaccine development priorities. Friends, the federal government has priorities in developing vaccines. Are you hearing me now? In a moment, we need to also tackle the false premise that has paved the way for these horrors. Going forward, this press release says BARDA will focus on platforms with stronger safety records, meaning they're going to distract you, just like they distracted you with the Fruit Loops and the red dye. Because don't you know, oh my gosh, I've got so much to cover about this. Bob is coming out and saying, we know that children's health is being harmed by sugar. That's the problem. And don't you know that public schools require children to ingest sugar as a prerequisite for attending school? And apparently your employer required Fruit Loops and red dye and apparently sugar in order to keep your job. You see, Bob is doing a classic bait and switch, but he is known as Bob the Bamboozler. And more and more people are waking up to that fact. So the government has a priority of federal vaccine development. It's very clear. And going forward, the government is going to get rid of the mRNA because that has been tainted. People are afraid of it now, just like they're concerned about mercury and thimerosal. So if you take that out of the jabs, well, people should line up. Otherwise, how are the pharmaceutical companies going to make money unless they get these jabs into your arms? So they're going to go with stronger safety records and transparent clinical and manufacturing data practices, because don't you know that keeps you safe? Technologies that were funded during the emergency phase but failed to meet current scientific standards will be phased out in favor of those products that will make the pharmaceutical companies even more money. Oh, I think that's what they wrote here. Yes, whole virus vaccines and novel platforms. Well, you ask yourself, Peggy, what are whole virus vaccines and what are novel platforms? Well, let's go to the big bad Pfizer itself, shall we? Here we are. There are 6 types of vaccine technologies, and there are the live vaccines, and then which are measles and mumps and so forth. And then there are inactivated vaccines, which are like the polio and the flu vaccines. And you know how well those work. Yeah, they work so well, you have to keep getting the flu vaccine every year, but you still get the flu. Crazy, isn't it? And then subunit vaccines that are made from a piece of the invisible pathogen that has never been proven to exist. And then there are the toxoid. Yes, don't you really want to take something that has the name toxoid in it? These come from inactivated toxins. And that's like the tetanus vaccine and the diphtheria. So many of you told me you had an adverse reaction to this jab when it was inflicted upon you when you went to the ER because you accidentally cut yourself with a kitchen knife. And then there are the viral vector vaccines. They use a harmless virus. Oh, yes, there are so many harmless viruses that have never been proven to exist as well. And then the deadly, dark, dastardly mRNA that everyone is afraid of, as well they should. And that's what the government is not going to focus on any longer. But check this out. They're going to be focusing on oral vaccines, intranasal vaccines. Are you seeing it here, friends? That means they're going to be, remember how you got the nasal assault? I never did. Who knows what was on that swab they were shoving up your nose? How about transdermal? Yes, where you are going to have a patch or a tiny microneedle patch. Nanoparticle vaccines, even plant-based vaccines. Yes, friends, that's what they're talking about. So all y'all that are applauding the fact that more money from the federal government that was stolen out of your pocket is going to go into developing these, let me just ask you, are you going to line up? Here's another one. What's in the pipeline? This is from the European Vaccination Information Portal. And yes, not only mRNA vaccines, but DNA. And there we have the oral vaccines, the through the skin, the microneedles, and the electroporation. I don't even want to know what that is. So there you have it. Now, I did this video for you a couple of days ago telling you that this man who's a crony of Bob's is suing Bob with a friendly lawsuit to force him, or he can say that he was forced to do more testing on innocent children. No one that I know of is talking about the faulty premise. What is a premise? A premise is a statement or an argument or a presupposition that you present, and that's the foundation for the rest of your argument. The presupposition about vaccines is that your body cannot fend off any illness without a pharmaceutical injection, or up the nose, or a nasal spray, or through the skin. This is a faulty presupposition. How is it that I never participated in any of the hogwash and I never so much as got a sniffle? How is it that my body fended off this mystery illness? Yet people that I know that were jabbed 2, 3, 4, 5, 100, a million times, I counted it accurately. How is it that they keep going and getting tested and say that they came down with the cooties, whatever that is, again? How are you going to explain that? How do you explain the fact that people are so deathly afraid of getting an illness that they are going to stand 6 feet apart, wear a suffocation device, stay home from work, not interact in the public realm, but then line up and get that very thing that they're deathly afraid of injected into their body? How is it that they don't understand that their own body has its own mechanisms for dealing with these conditions, which I'm not even going to call an illness? How do we know the body doesn't have a reason for giving you the sniffles or sneezing? Have you ever sneezed? Yeah, your body's trying to expel something. Have you ever had a rash? Yeah, your body's trying to expel something through the skin. But you know what? Natural remedies and letting nature take its course doesn't line the pockets of the pharmaceutical companies. This man that you're looking at is working to line the pockets of the pharmaceutical companies, period, end of statement. That's my presupposition. Prove me wrong. And you can't. Now, let me just share with you. This is what's truly troubling to me. Here comes an email from a healthy American who's actually quite active, has done quite a bit of action in the last few years, but she sent me this email. I just read this email of yours, the one I just showed you, about RFK Jr. I'm more than surprised at its content. I haven't read many of your recent writings because they're very depressing. Well, she must be reading the wrong thing, because all y'all here that follow me and all of the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of letters I get from people are thanking me for my encouragement, my positive encouragement. But you know, people look in the mirror and they see a reflection of themselves. She says the purpose of this email is to convey that I'm impressed with your knowledge over this issue. I guess it's very depressing because it's the news of CHD filing a lawsuit against RFJK Jr. And I'm even willing to support and donate you again if you will just tell us what we can do, what we should do to help right this wrong. Otherwise, it's like I go to my doctor for an annual. Well, there's your problem right there. Why are you going to a doctor for an annual? An annual what? Anyway, I digress. I go to my doctor for an annual and he says, well, your brain is sick, your heart is sick, your lungs, kidney, and liver are sick, and so are your arms or legs. They are also sick. Bye. In essence, he only tells me what's wrong versus telling me what's wrong and what I need to do to fix it and get rid of the sickness. I would hate that kind of doctor and report his irresponsibility of not helping me fix the ill. I know I've asked you before to Tell us what we need to do about the wrongs you are reporting. Otherwise, it's a depressing waste of our time to only read, read, read. That's the same if we only watch the news night after night and do nothing. Please start making your writings usable by telling us what we can do to fix the problem, Peggy. I'm sure that's the tone she was using. I believe you will get more readers and supporters, including me. Please. Well, you know what's funny, you guys? Here's what's funny. Oh, I got another email from someone else saying, thank you for all you are doing. We so appreciate you and your efforts. Thank you, JFK Jr. I don't know who JFK Jr. is. Anyhow, let me share this with you. The email that the woman was replying to was this one. It was my Substack, actually. And you know what? Here's how I know people don't read. Because she's complaining that I didn't tell her what to do. Hang on to your hats, friends. Am I the only one that can read this? Can anyone read this? Let me know in a comment. Can anyone read the subtitle of this header I have right here? You know what? It's called What You Can Do. Should I have worded it differently? Should I have used her name in the subtitle and said, what you can do? And that's her name. I actually gave specifics, like sharing the Substack, like remembering that this really doesn't affect you to the degree that you think it might, because the government has no authority. And then I gave 3 other action steps and websites to click on, to learn, to share the information from Physicians for Informed Consent for Age of Autism, and to watch and read Why Is This Legal? You see, this woman that's complaining is lazy. That's all I can conclude, because learning requires reading and watching. So I also sent her links to my previous Substacks called Exactly What You Can Do and What You Can Do When You're Feeling Overwhelmed. I have dozens and dozens and dozens, hundreds and thousands of videos and Substacks that are all about encouraging you to read between the lies, to make choices that make sense for you in your life. This sad, poor woman is so frustrated and worn down by the evildoers. She is an example of they won her. They won her soul. They won her mind. They won her. She couldn't even see this, but she complained about the newsletter. Well, the Substack. I'm just flabbergasted, frankly, absolutely flabbergasted. I just am going to take a look at your comments, because you probably have something better to say. Let's see. Yeah. This woman goes to the doctor for no reason at all. And then complains about my Substack that says this is what you should do. So I actually sent her a very nice, well, I guess you could call it nice, a very nice response with a link. And I also said, did you read the newsletter? Because at the end of the newsletter, I told you exactly what to do. Okay. All right, friends, on that happy note, on that upbeat, positive, depressing, I'm such a depressing person. Oh my goodness. You know, Madeline says, it reminds me of corporate America, when the same person asks you to send them an email 10 times, and each time you attach it to the one you sent before. They're too lazy to look for it themselves. I can't tell you the number of times people email me and ask me for a video. You know what I'm going to do? They ask me for one of my videos. I'm going to go on my YouTube channel and I'm going to search for it. Yeah. So here's the problem, friends. People don't want to take responsibility. She wants me to come up with the solutions. Why doesn't she come up with the solutions? In fact, at the end of my Substack, that's exactly what I asked. I said, please share. Let me know what you are doing. If you have other ideas to add to my list. Am I supposed to be rowing the boat all by myself, friends? Am I the only one rowing the boat here? I don't think so. I'm grateful for all y'all who actually understand that it takes effort and energy to do this. And I really appreciate your words of support here. That's what I'm going to focus on. I'm using that example of the woman's email to share with you why we're in this sad state of affairs. People don't want to read. They don't want to learn. They don't want to do it on their own. Not you, but the general public. That's why they all fell for the hogwash in the beginning. I wasn't an expert in public health law. I wasn't an expert in religious exemptions. I rolled up my sleeves, I did the research, and I figured it out myself. And I put my own life on hold for years now. This is my job. This is what I do all day. And not you smart ones, but the others trip across the channel and complain about me running a sponsor message. Really? Really? People have no clue what it takes to do this kind of work, but I'm grateful that you do. Friends, I'm going to be sharing with you more cards and letters. I'm so grateful when you send those in. Thanks for letting me get that off my chest. And let's keep sharing the information, standing strong, making choices that make sense for us. And for heaven's sakes, stop giving your power away to the white coats and the government, pretending that they're white coats. All right, friends, I look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's video, always over at thehealthyamerican.org, and get on that free Substack. Yes, there are tips and techniques and strategies and solutions and resources and remedies